Okay guys, so today we're going to be using what we did Monday in class. So remember, we were converting between exponential and logarithmic form, um, and we're going to be solving this time for a missing variable. So at this point, you should be okay to do the do now. So you can take a second and try the do now if you haven't tried it. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Here they just want us to convert between exponential and logarithmic form. So this one they gave us started as logarithmic, so we're going to go into exponential. So remember, this means what power of x is 6? And they're telling us that's y. So that would be x to the y equals 6. And then for the other part of this question, it started in exponential and we need to go to logarithmic. So it's n to the d equals r. So when I write my log, I'm going to do base n of r equals d. Remember, it's always base answer equals exponent. Here, if they ask us to evaluate something, we can actually ask ourselves, what power of 5 is 1 over 25? So remember that we know if it was just a regular 25, we would just say 2, because 5 squared is 25. Since it's 1 over 25, we need to think about the fact that we took the reciprocal. In order to take the reciprocal, we need a negative exponent. So this is going to be negative 2. Okay, so we're just going to be using that property here, thinking what power of to solve for what's missing. And again, we need to do this algebraically. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to observe what's given to us. This is given to us in log form. If they ask us what power, let's see, they have what power of 2 gives me a, and they're telling me it's the negative 3 power. That means 2 to the negative 3 equals a. So it was given to me in logarithmic form. I rewrote it in exponential form. For most people, rewriting it in exponential form helps them figure out what they're trying to obtain. And then you're going to think, well, what's 2 to the negative 3? Well, 2 to the third is 8. If it's to the negative power, I'm just going to take the reciprocal. So I'm going to get 1/8 equals a. Okay, so I'd like you to pause the video and I want you to try number 4 using the same idea. Okay, at this point, you've tried number 4. You know we need to go, the easiest way to do these is go into exponential form. So remember, it's log base b of 125 is equal to 3/2. So it's b to the 3/2 power is equal to 125. So if we're trying to figure this out, well, I need this b to be by itself. And now this is going to be a callback to a previous unit. To get rid of that 2/3, I really need to raise both sides to the 3/2. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 3/2. I have to raise both sides to the 2/3. So when we do that, you could either do this in your head or in your calculator. The cube root of 125 is going to be 5, and then 5 squared is 25. Okay, so I'd like you to pause the video and I want you to try number 5 using the same type of idea. So for number 5, when we look here, we want to make sure we convert this into exponential form. So it's going to be 3 to the 4th equals x plus 1. And then we're just going to solve for x. Anytime you do these types of problems, it's very beneficial to substitute your answer back in to check to make sure it works. So when we do 3 to the 4th, we get 81. and then we would just subtract the 1 over to get x equals 80. So once we convert these to exponential form, they're really the same type of questions you've been doing in the past. They can make it a little bit more fun, like giving you a question like this, where they say log base 5 of x equals 2. What's the value of radical x? Well, first we'd want to solve for x, so we're going to go for exponential form. So 5 squared equals x. And I get 25 equals x. And then if we go back and look at what they're actually asking for in the problem, they wanted radical x. So radical 25 is equal to 5. Okay, so I'd like you to turn the page and I want you to try number 7. Keep in mind that number 7 does want us to round to the nearest tenth, so you may need to use your calculator to calculate your final answer. Okay, at this point, you've tried number 7. You should definitely have set this up as x cubed equals 5. And we want to think about, well, how do I get rid of that power of 3? I need to take the cube root of both sides. Now, 5 is not a nice number to take the cube root of by hand, so we can just sub that into our calculator. And then we want to make sure we follow the rounding instructions to round to the nearest tenth. So when we round to the nearest tenth, we should get 2.9. Okay. The last one I'm going to do with you guys is number 8, and then you're going to do 8 and 9 as questions to finish up in class. When you finish those, you can show the answers you got to the sub, and if you get them right, you can start your homework early. So for number 8, we're going to write this in exponential form. So it's going to be 8 to the x equals 1/2. So now you need to think to yourself, well, how do I make the 8 become something with a 2? So you want to keep in mind that 8 is related to 2 because 2 cubed is 8. So if you know 2 cubed is 8, that means if I take the cube root of 8, it will give me 2. But I don't want this to turn into a 2, I want it to turn into a 1/2. So that means x needs to be negative 1/3. Again, first you rewrote this in exponential form, so you had 8 to the x equals 1/2. And then you need to think about how the 8 and the 2 are related. 8 is the same as 2 to the 3rd. So when you think about this, to make an 8 turn into a 2, I need to take a cube root. Remember, a cube root can be written as a 1/3 power. But I don't want my 8 to just be a 2. I want it to be 1 over 2. To take the reciprocal, you need to have a negative exponent. The only other way to do a question like this, if you want to try to think about your algebraic reasoning, is you could have thought of the 8 as 2 to the 3rd raised to the x, which is equal to 1/2. And again, this is just an alternate way to do the problem. If you like the first way, then that's fine. So then you could think, okay, well, how do I get 2 to the 3x to equal 2 to the negative 1? Well, that would mean x has to equal negative 1/3. Just another way to think about it. Okay, at this point, you're going to try number 9 and number 10. Number 10 has a lot of algebra to it, so you really need to make sure you stick it out. You can check your answers with the sub, and if you get it correct, then you can get a copy of the homework and get started on it. Have a good day, guys.